Question 1. Through careful analysis of a construction site layout, Mr. Castillo is operating a rough terrain forklift to deliver a large roof HVACR unit across a gravel incline with a 10x slope. The load is heavy but within the rated capacity at ground level. However, Mr. Castillo notices the unit is bulky and the center of gravity appears elevated. He is halfway up the slope when he senses the rear wheels lifting slightly. What should Mr. Castillo done differently to avoid this hazardous situation? A. Increased his speed uphill to use momentum and counteract the slope. B. Tilted the forks fully forward to distribute the load weight. C. Lowered the load as much as possible and reversed up the slope. D. Requested spotter and traveled sideways up the slope for better visibility. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. According to OSHA 29 CFR 1910.178 and ANSET Speed.6 standards, the safest method for ascending a slope with a heavy load on rough terrain is to keep the load low and drive in reverse uphill to maintain stability. When the load center is high and moving forward uphill, it shifts the center of gravity outside the stability triangle, increasing tip-over risk. Option. A encourages unsafe speed. B. Increases forward tipping risk. D is a visibility tactic, not a stability solution. Load handling on slopes must prioritize gravity management and weight distribution. Question 2. In response to a series of near-miss incidents involving hydraulic failure, a company mandates that all forklift operators document their pre-shift inspections. During a cold morning, Patel finds that the hydraulic controls are slightly delayed and the mast tilts slowly. What is the most appropriate action she should take before beginning operations? A. Proceed with caution as the machine will warm up with use. B. Document the issue and begin limited operation only on flat ground. C. Report the delay and request a qualified technician to inspect the system. D. Cycle the hydraulics rapidly to get fluid flowing and see if it improves. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Per OSHA 1910.178 Q7, if any part of the forklift is found to be defective or in any way unsafe, it must be taken out of service until restored to safe condition. Cold weather hydraulic sluggishness may indicate fluid thickening or pump issues and should be examined before use. Operating without inspection may cause unexpected failures during lifting. Option. And D involve unsafe assumptions. B still violates OSHA since an unsafe truck is being operated. Question 3. During the process of moving HVACR condensing units across a job site, Mr. Nguyen encounters sudden gusts of 30+ miles per hour wind while the unit is raised to clear a curb. The load begins to sway slightly and visibility is compromised by blowing debris. What is the most appropriate response in this situation? A. Speed up the operation to quickly set the load down. B. Lower the load immediately and stop operation until wind subsides. C. Call for assistance to secure the load with straps mid-operation. D. Increase tilt back on the forks and continue to the drop-off point. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA and SMB.6 safety standards require that operations be suspended in unsafe weather, especially when dealing with elevated loads. High winds can destabilize tall or light HVACR units, and poor visibility increases the risk of collision or tip-over. Option. It promotes unsafe haste. C adds complexity in a dangerous moment, and D assumes tilt alone will stabilize the load. Forklift operation must adapt to environmental hazards, prioritizing operator and site safety. Question 4. With the advent of modular HVACR equipment, operators frequently transport pre-assembled units across mixed terrain. On one site, Rivera must drive across compacted gravel with embedded rebar rods sticking slightly above grade. What is the best risk mitigation strategy in this case? A. Increase tire pressure to reduce bounce and vibration over the rods. B. Proceed slowly while lifting the load slightly above mast height for clearance. C. Flag the area as a hazard zone and use a spotter while routing around it. D. Drive directly over the rebar to maintain a straight path to the target location. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. ANSET Speed.6 and OSHA guidelines dictate that operators must assess and mitigate terrain hazards. Protruding rebar poses a puncture and stability risk. The best practice is to route, or if necessary, use a spotter for safer navigation. Options A and B are unsafe. Tire pressure affects traction and elevating loads reduces stability. D. Disregards hazard avoidance protocols. Proper job site planning prevents equipment damage and operator injury. Question 5. Demonstrated by a recent HVAC installation project, Mr. Thomas is lifting a long metal ductwork section using a jib boom attachment on a rough terrain forklift. The load is balanced but extends significantly beyond the front tires. Which of the following is the most significant safety concern with this operation? A. The added reach decreases visibility. B. The attachment reduces the load capacity significantly. C. The load is too long for standard lifting height. D. The metal may become electrified during lifting. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. When using attachments like jib booms, OSHA 1910.178 Q6 requires that the truck's capacity be re-evaluated. Attachments shift the load center outward, reducing stability and lifting capacity. This is often overlooked in practice, while visibility A and load length C are concerns. The capacity derating is the critical safety issue. Option D only applies in specific energized environments. Failure to adjust for capacity could lead to mechanical failure or tip over. Question 6. To illustrate this point, Mr. Vasquez, a certified RT forklift operator, is instructed by a foreman to operate a forklift with a known steering fault during a critical deadline. The foreman insists the issue is minor and the work must continue. What is Mr. Vasquez's legal and ethical responsibility in this situation? A. Document the issue and proceed under supervision. B. Refuse to operate the forklift and report the unsafe directive. C. Attempt to troubleshoot the steering to reduce downtime. D. Operate the forklift only for minimal movements. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.178 P1 requires that forklifts with any unsafe condition must be removed from service. Operators have the legal right and duty to refuse unsafe work, supported by OSHA's Whistleblower Protection Program. Ethical responsibility includes protecting oneself and others from foreseeable harm. Options A, C, and D enable operation of known defective machine, violating regulations and increasing liability. Question 7. Considering the evidence from a confined HVACR construction zone, Mr. DeLuca needs to reverse a rough terrain forklift between stacked pallets and temporary fencing. Space is tight and visibility to the rear is obstructed. Which maneuver is safest and compliant with standards? A. Use mirrors alone and back out slowly. B. Request a train spotter to guide him through the space. C. Raise the load to improve rear visibility. D. Sound the horn frequently and proceed in reverse. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Per OSHA 1910.178 N3 and ANSI B.6, a spotter is required when visibility is obstructed. Forklift operation in restricted spaces must prioritize collision prevention through human guidance, not just mirrors or noise. Raising the load, C, reduces forward visibility and stability. Horn use, D, is essential but not a substitute for visual confirmation. Best practice is using a competent guide to ensure safe clearance. Question 8. In light of recent development, HVACR projects are seeing more rooftop deliveries via forklifts. Mr. O'Donnell is tasked with planning delivery route through partially paved site with active pedestrian movement. What is the most critical planning element he must include before the forklift operation begins? A. Permit for rooftop delivery access. B. High visibility vest requirement for pedestrians. C. Clearly marked barricaded travel path with exclusion zones. D. Secondary equipment access path for emergencies. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Site planning per OSHA and ANSI B.6 must include clearly marked travel paths and pedestrian exclusion zones. Barricading prevents unintended access and creates predictable forklift movement zones. Option A may apply in specific cases but is not universally required. Option B is good practice but does not control movement. Option D is a backup, not the most critical element. Proper planning ensures safe, efficient, and conflict-free operation. Question 9. The general consensus is that improper use of attachments can lead to catastrophic failure in A repair scenario is Walters installs a jib boom on a forklift to lift HVAC piping but forgets to adjust the data plate or reevaluate lifting capacity. What violation has occurred here? A. Improper use of a hydraulic system. B. Failure to secure attachment mounting bolts. C. Use of forklift with an unupdated capacity rating. D. Lifting a load that exceeds load length. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.178A4 requires data plates to reflect accurate capacity with attachments. ANSI standards reinforce that any change affecting load, center, or lifting limits must be documented and approved by the manufacturer. Not updating this is a violation, even if the load is below original capacity. Options A and B may be relevant in different mechanical failures, but are not the regulatory issue in this case. D is a partial concern, but not the main violation. Question 10. Throughout the course of an HVACR delivery to a congested city project, Mr. Ibrahim identifies a leaking fuel line under his forklift during staging near the sidewalk. A foreman nearby says it's probably just a minor drip. What is the best course of action under OSHA guidance? A. Continue operation as long as no flames or sparks are present. B. Tag the forklift out of service and report the issue immediately. C. Tighten the connection and observe if the leak stops. D. Move the forklift to a less populated area before shutting down. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1910.178P1 mandates immediate removal from service if a forklift has a defect including fuel leaks. Continuing to operate any internal combustion truck with a fuel leak risks fire or explosion, especially near pedestrians. Tagging out and reporting ensures the equipment is repaired before further use. Option. It downplays the danger. C and D involve unsafe manipulation or delayed shutdown. Question 11. While unloading HVACR evaporators in low-light conditions, Mr. Jackson relies on his forklift's standard headlights, but notices shadows obscuring pallet edges. There are no fixed lights in the staging area. What is the best immediate solution to ensure safe operation? A. Continue with reduced speed and rely on reflective vest visibility. B. Equip the forklift with additional auxiliary lighting to improve visibility. C. Wait until daylight and block off the area for later unloading. D. Proceed cautiously, honking frequently to alert nearby workers. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. ANSITS B.62021 requires adequate lighting for safe forklift operation. Installing auxiliary lights ensures visibility of load edges and path, reducing the chance of collision or tip over. Reflective vests, they help with personnel detection, not load handling. Delaying. C is not always feasible. Sounding the horn. D doesn't address visual deficiencies. Question 12. During HVACR duct delivery to a rooftop job site, Mr. Ortega feels the rear of the forklift bouncing excessively over uneven terrain while carrying a heavy but balanced load. What is the most likely cause of this behavior? A. Tire tread wear is causing the bounce. B. The load center is too far back. C. The forklift suspension is unbalanced due to overloaded rear tires. D. The load is too light for the rough terrain. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. A bouncing rear end on rough terrain usually indicates shifting weight away from the front axle, which carries the bulk of the load. If rear tires are overloaded or suspension is imbalanced, this can reduce traction and control. Options A and D don't explain the excessive bounce under load. B is incorrect because loads are typically forward-centered. Question 13. An HVACR technician needs to transport a condenser unit weighing 3,200 pounds using a rough terrain forklift rated at 5,000 pounds at a 24 load center. The load center of gravity is at 40. Can the load be safely lifted? A. Yes, the load is well below capacity. B. Yes, because the terrain offsets the center of gravity. C. No, because the effective capacity is reduced due to the extended load center. D. No, unless the forklift is retrofitted with longer forks. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. A 40 load center exceeds the rated 24, drastically reducing lifting capacity. ANSI B.6 requires calculating derated capacity for off-center loads. The effective safe capacity drops below 3,200 pounds. Fork length doesn't correct capacity. D. And terrain does not compensate for center of gravity. B. Option ignores load center influence. Question 14. At a busy construction site, Mr. Singh is reversing his forklift while workers walk between trucks and HVACR staging areas. There are backup alarms and lights on his machine. What additional action must be taken to comply with OSHA safety standards? A. Use spotters or signal persons to control pedestrian traffic. B. Wear double hearing protection to reduce distractions. C. Increase speed to reduce time spent in the congested zone. D. Rely on the forklift's automatic proximity sensor. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1926.601 and ANSI B.6 require operators to use spotters when pedestrians are nearby and visibility is obstructed. Alarms alone don't prevent accidents. Hearing protection B doesn't address visibility. Speeding up C increases risk. Proximity sensors D are helpful but not substitutes for human direction in close quarters. Question 15. Mr. Delgado's unloading packaged HVACR insulation panels onto a raised platform. The load is lightweight but awkward and tall, and he is struggling to align it while keeping it steady. What technique should be used for safe placement of tall, unstable loads? A. Fully tilt back the mast while positioning the load. B. Lower the load before reaching the platform edge. C. Use the spotter and slowly inch the forks forward with the load low. D. Raise the load above the platform before getting close. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Tall, unstable loads require slow movement with a spotter and minimal lift height for stability. Option A increases the risk of toppling. A. B may prevent successful placement. A. D elevates center of gravity, increasing tip over risk. Control placement with guidance ensures safety. Question 16. While maneuvering an RT forklift on site, Mr. Jefferson notices smoke and a faint burning smell coming from the engine compartment. There are no flames, but the forklift starts losing power. What is the correct immediate response? A. Drive the forklift to a safe open area, shut it down and report the issue. B. Stop where he is, investigate the source and restart the forklift after coolant. C. Keep operating if no flames are visible. D. Signal another operator to take over and continue the task. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. OSHA mandates immediate cessation of equipment use in the presence of mechanical failure or fire risk. 1910.178 p.1. Safely removing the forklift from traffic flow and shutting it down is the safest course. Restarting B is unsafe. A continuing operation C. D is a violation and endangers all nearby. Question 17. Mr. Ballard is tasked with lifting an HVACR supply crate on a rough slope. He adjusts his fork spacing to match the pallet, but notices slight outward lean of the forks under load. Which adjustment should be made before continuing? A. Move forks closer together to increase support. B. Stop operation and inspect forks for damage or wear. C. Spread the forks wider to balance the crate weight. D. Add a wooden shim under one fork to level the load. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Forks showing outward lean under load may be cracked or bent, a serious hazard requiring inspection. Continuing use may lead to catastrophic failure. Adjusting spacing. A. C. Doesn't address potential structural issues. Shimming. D. Is not recognized safety practice and introduces instability. Question 18. An HVACR contractor needs to deliver packaged units to an elevated loading bay using a temporary plywood ramp over compact soil. The slope is 11 deg and the ramp is dry. What is the biggest safety concern in this scenario? A. Forklift traction may be reduced due to the plywood surface. B. Soil beneath the ramp will compress, making the ramp too steep. C. The ramp exceeds the manufacturer's grade rating for safe operation. D. HVACR units are too heavy for use on temporary surfaces. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Most rough terrain forklifts are rated for grade travel up to 10 deg 12 deg under specific conditions. However, OSHA and ANSI require verifying slope safety against manufacturer specs. 11 deg is close to max grade, and combined with temporary construction, this becomes high-risk setup. And B are risks but secondary. D depends on ramp design. Question 19. In a training scenario, operators are shown a simulation where a forklift tips forward while braking downhill with a load. The instructor asks why it happened. Where's the best explanation for this tip over? The load center shifted outside the stability triangle due to downhill braking. B. The operator turned the wheels too sharply. C. The forks were tilted backward too far. D. The terrain caused one wheel to lift. Answer. Correct answer, an explanation. Braking downhill shifts inertia and the center of gravity forward, possibly moving it outside the stability triangle, especially with a raised load. This is a common cause of forward tip over per ANSI B.6. B and D are side tip hazards. ISI earns rear stability, not forward tip. Question 20. After completing a shift, Is Klein notes that the forklift's brakes feel soft and the fluid reservoir is low. She is due back on shift in 6 hours. What must she do before putting the equipment back into service? A. Refill the fluid and make note for the next operator. B. Record the defect and report it for service before reuse. C. Put service tag on the forklift and resume using it if it feels okay. D. Only operate the forklift on flat surfaces until repaired. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1910.178 Q1 requires any defects to be reported and corrected before further use. Soft brakes are critical issue. Simply refilling fluid A is not sufficient. Service tagging C is part of procedure but doesn't authorize use. D violates the prohibition on using unsafe equipment. Question 21. While transporting a large HVACR air handler across a crowded job site, Mr. Brennan is informed via radio that roofers are staging equipment near his intended route. He cannot see over the load due to its size and height. What is the safest and most OSHA-compliant way to proceed? A. Reverse the forklift with mirrors and backup alarm activated. B. Lower the load and drive forward carefully. C. Stop and request a spotter or signal person for assistance. D. Continue slowly and honk the horn at intersections. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.601 B4 Omen 2 Nancy B.6 require the use of spotters when visibility is obstructed. Large HVACR units often limit line of sight while reversing A or honking. D may help. They don't replace direct visual assistance. Lowering the load B does not improve forward visibility if it's still too large. Question 22. Mr. O'Neill is operating a rough terrain forklift on a sloped gravel job site while carrying a load of ductwork. He notices the load shift slightly to the right when the tires hit a shallow pothole. What is the best immediate corrective action? A. Turn the steering wheel slightly left to counterbalance the shift. B. Raise the fork slightly to avoid ground contact. C. Lower the load as much as possible and stop on level ground. D. Continue forward slowly to maintain momentum. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Lowering the load lowers the center of gravity, improving stability. Stopping on level ground helps recenter the load safely per OSHA and ANSI stability guidelines. Raising forks B or counter steering A can cause further instability. Momentum D increases tipping risk on rough terrain. Question 23. While preparing to unload HVACR compressors from a flatbed trailer, Patel notices an overhead power line about 14 feet above the staging area. What is the most appropriate action before beginning unloading? A. Proceed cautiously as the forklift mast will not contact the wire. B. Notify the site supervisor and request a reassignment of the unloading area. C. Raise the forks only as needed and avoid raising the mast near the wires. D. Wear rubber gloves and proceed with extra caution. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.600 prohibits operating equipment within 10 feet of overhead power lines unless lines are energized or shielded. Even if contact is unlikely, risk of arcing remains. Reassigning the area B is the safest action. Options A and C still violate clearance rules. D offers no protection from high voltage exposure. Question 24. An HVACR operator attaches a jib boom to the forklift to lift a rooftop condenser unit. The operator does not consult the manufacturer's manual before using the attachment. What is the regulatory concern in this situation? A. Jib booms are only allowed on cranes, not forklifts. B. OSHA requires recertification before using attachments. C. Capacity data plates must reflect the altered lifting capacity. D. Forklift stability is unaffected by approved attachments. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Per OSHA 1910.178A4, attachments must be accounted for on the capacity plate. Not doing so violates federal regulations and can result in overloading or tipping. It is incorrect. Jib booms are legal with proper procedures. B is false. Retraining may be needed, not recertification. D is incorrect. Attachments alter load center and stability. Question 25. During an HVACR site inspection, Mr. Russo finds his coworker, who is uncertified, operating a rough terrain forklift to reposition a pallet of mini split units. The coworker claims it's one-time emergency. What should Mr. Russo do? A. Allow the coworker to proceed but supervise closely. B. Stop the activity and report it to the supervisor immediately. C. Provide on-the-spot training to the coworker. D. Allow it since it's an emergency and safety cones are set. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1910.178L1I requires formal training and evaluation before operating a forklift. Emergency use does not override this. Supervising or training without proper evaluation. C. is non-compliant. Cones. D. do not reduce regulatory obligation. Reporting ensures site accountability and prevents injuries. Question 26. A forklift operator lifts a tall HVACR unit using long forks. The load appears stable but starts to sway side to side while maneuvering on gravel. What best explains the cause of the swaying? A. Wind pressure is acting on the tall surface. B. The forks are too short, creating an unstable lift. C. The operator exceeded the machine's lift height. D. The center of gravity is too high for the terrain. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. Tall HVACR loads raised too high shift the center of gravity upward, reducing stability. Especially on uneven ground, wind may contribute but isn't the root cause. Fork length. B. isn't relevant if they support the load. Height limit. C. may not be exceeded but still unstable based on load configuration and ground condition. Question 27. Given tight timelines and limited equipment, is Walters considers using a rough terrain forklift to lift an HVACR unit over a concrete wall 6 feet high to a team on the other side. What critical decision factor must she evaluate before proceeding? A. The visibility of workers on the opposite side. B. The risk of side shifting due to crosswinds. C. The manufacturer's rated lifting height and forward reach. D. The ambient temperature and tire inflation. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Every lift must be within manufacturer-rated height, reach, and capacity specs. Overreaching or overextending the boom creates tip-over risk. Visibility. A. is secondary. Crosswinds. B. may matter at height but depend on surface area. Tire inflation. D. has minimal effect on vertical reach. Question 20. Mr. Lee notices that the forklift's mast leans slightly forward even when fully retracted. Hydraulic fluid levels appear normal. What is the most likely mechanical issue? A. The mast tilt cylinder has internal leakage. B. The forks are misaligned from prior use. C. Air in the fuel line is affecting mast stability. D. The load backrest is bent forward. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. A leaning mast with no external leak often signals internal leakage in the tilt cylinder, which allows hydraulic drift. Fork alignment. B. won't affect mast angle. Fuel systems. C. are unrelated. Bent load backrest. D. may tilt the load, not the mast. Question 29. While lifting a large evaporator coil outdoors in heavy rain, Mr. Jenkins notices reduced traction and visibility. He's wearing gloves and waterproof coat, and the path includes slight downhill slope. What is the biggest hazard in this situation? A. Cold air affecting hydraulic response. B. Slippery controls inside the cab. C. Increased stopping distance and reduced friction. D. Load shift due to water absorption in packaging. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Wet terrain reduces traction, especially on slopes, leading to longer stopping distances and possible skidding. Answer B. Point 6 emphasizes adjusting speed for environmental conditions. Cold air may affect hydraulics over time but isn't primary. Slippery controls B are minor compared to friction loss. Packaging D is rarely significant. Question 30. For a multi-phase HVACR installation, the contractor needs to schedule forklift deliveries over a 3-week period. The project manager wants to pre-place all materials now. What is the main concern with this approach? A. Theft risk of HVACR components. B. Increased travel distance for workers. C. Obstructing work zones with excess materials. D. Forklift wear and tear from early use. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Excessively pre-positioned materials can obstruct critical work zones, violate OSHA housekeeping standards 1926.25, and create hazards for other trades. Theft A and wear D are concerns but not as directly impactful. Worker travel B affects productivity, not safety.